Now for this week's installment of Pride of NASCAR. This week, Ralph Shaheen caught up with one of the most versatile race car drivers in the history of motorsports. Dan Gurney won 4 straight, a total of 5 Sprint Cup races, all on the road course at Riverside in Southern California. But what made Dan Gurney special was the wide variety of races he competed in, including the legendary Cannonball Run.
I, of course, at the time said, no, I'll not do it. It's illegal, and if anything ever went wrong, it'd be bad for racing. And then my father-in-law was dying of a virulent throat cancer, and I heard he said to me, Evie was over there with him, he said, look, why don't you go ahead and do it? I mean, what's life all about? And I know you could do well in that, so flew across the country and started about 12:30 midnight, past half an hour past midnight, and that was it.
You're the first person to ever spray a champagne bottle in Victory Circle in, I believe it was 1967, and you and A.J. Foyt had just stunned the racing world by winning the 24 Hours of Le Mans for Ford and beating the then dominant Ferrari powerhouse of that era. What made you spray that huge bottle of champagne?
I hadn't planned it, but when they handed me this, it was like handing me a fire hose with champagne. I just let it rip and watered down all their lenses on the cameras, and also got Henry Ford and his new fiancée. And why, I don't know. I guess it had been a 10-year effort to try to reach that point, and we did it, and it was in the history books, and it was a fabulous feeling.
As an inventor, you've always been way out of the box, and you came up with such things that are now everyday pieces of racing is the Gurney flap. I mean, you actually have a piece that's used by everybody that's named after you.
Necessity is the mother of invention. We had been testing for 3 days, enormous heat down in Phoenix on the 1-mile racetrack, and we couldn't go as fast as we wanted. We were about 2 seconds off the lap record. I knew that we had done things with spoilers on the back, just like NASCAR has been using in the past, and I said to myself, I wonder if that spoiler sort of thing would work on a wing. We built it within 45 minutes or so. We had enough scrap metal and pop rivets, and we built it and tested it right then and there, and it was bang. It was very good.
So many accomplishments as a team owner, All-American Racers, as a driver, and as an inventor. Which one are you the best at? Driver, inventor, or team owner?
In a way, we're blessed with really good people. And even during driving days, I mean, when I drove NASCAR and had the pleasure of driving with the Wood brothers, their car, why they were so good that I almost felt guilty sometimes.
For many years, NASCAR's tour stop for the Cup Series on the West Coast was the old Riverside International Raceway here in Southern California. Unfortunately, like what has happened to many old racetracks, it's now a shopping mall a few miles from here. All that's left is this great museum here in the Riverside area. Back then, just like today, many of the day's superstar road racers all showed up looking to take the big trophy away from the stock car guys. Then, the big name, the living legend, Dan Gurney, was the original ringer.
Gurney in number 28 Ford catches Roberts in number 22 Pontiac. On lap 100, Gurney charges past Roberts and goes in front for good.
I was probably lucky, and I was more of a student of what it takes, and I knew Riverside well. Skip Hudson and I followed on our motorcycles when the bulldozers were fixing what became Riverside. But that really, you need to have a really good feel for the geometry of a track, and you need to have, I mean, if you've got a team like the Wood brothers was in those days, why, I'm not saying it was easy, but it was a huge advantage.
You had spent so much time at that period running all these great open wheel and sports cars. What were the stock cars like? Were they dinosaurs compared to some of the other things you were driving?
I used to joke like a Formula One car, which was the lightest one, was like a water bug where they go, could just do quick moves like that. And driving a stock car, I said, was kind of like trying to dock an aircraft carrier. So you say, you know, full steam ahead and nothing happened. Then gradually you have or put on the brakes and or try to turn in this big lumbering thing. But the fact was, it wasn't that different from a regular racing car. The timing of how things happen was different. The heavier they are, the more slowly they respond, but that does not make them any easier to win with or to drive.
Do you like being the first ringer?
If the ringer wins, I guess the ringer likes it. I think it's probably much more difficult today. The regular NASCAR drivers, or the top ones, are much better than they were then. I don't know. I've often wondered about that. Maybe it's time for a comeback. No. Anyway. Yeah.
You started to say maybe it's time for a comeback. Ralph and the crew, great job on that. Guys, kind of like with Dave Marcus a couple of weeks ago, this is a name that for our fringe fans, maybe the people who are new to the sport, they might not recognize, but a legend.
Yeah, but especially stock car fans. You don't recognize the Gurney name in stock car circles. He was the original ringer, and a good ringer at that. I just did a deal with the Wood brothers. It was a privilege to have Dan Gurney drive their car. It wasn't something, so many guys say, I got to drive this, I got to drive that. They're like, Dan Gurney got to drive for us.
And you know what? In all the history of motorsports, there's only 3 drivers to win in NASCAR, to win in Formula One, and to win in the IndyCar: Mario Andretti, Juan Pablo Montoya, and Dan Gurney. That's only 3 that can claim that they've won in all 3 of those series.
And Gurney, the only American who drove an American-made car to win the F1.
That he designed.
That he was also his car. Yeah, again, great stuff from Ralph and the crew. Thanks.